And welcome back into the Rowdy Studios. Bassmasters with Buzz Cutler talking about the wild card picture, which changed a bit, Cutler, after Paul Menard won the Brickyard 400.
It changed rather dramatically. Paul Menard jumped to 14th in the standings with a win, plus Denny Hamlin fell out of the top 10 with a win. He is now in 11th. So as things stand right now, Denny Hamlin and Paul Menard make the chase. David Reagan, who looked as if he was sitting pretty, is not in the current chase picture. You know, I think right now it's going to be in flux until we get to Richmond, and I think David Reagan and Paul Menard are going to be watching each other very closely at each of these subsequent races.
And when you get to Richmond and when you close in on Richmond, you're going to have to look at it another way, which is at some point it might be in David Reagan's interest, for example, to have Denny Hamlin finish ahead of him, because that might be enough points to get Denny into the chase.
Right.
And thus give Reagan the wild card. So you're really looking at a bunch of moving pieces and parts here as far as figuring out the wild card, because it's going to come down, it looks like, it feels like it's going to come down to one-win guys. Maybe a two-win guy slips out. Maybe a Jeff Gordon somehow slips out, although he's looking better. But I think it's like maybe we'll have 3 or 4 one-win guys between 11th and 20th, and how those guys fare compared to each other is going to determine the wild card.
Well, and a couple other things to keep in mind. Dale Earnhardt Jr. fell to 10th.
Yep.
He doesn't have a win. Tony Stewart is hanging on to the edge of that top 10. He doesn't have a win. Ryan Newman looks vulnerable. He has 1 win. So it's not just about the guys on the outside looking in and if their victory will get them a chase. It's also the guys teetering on the brink of falling out of the top 10. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has moved down steadily since Pocono.
Right, and if you're one of these guys with 1 win, you don't want to see Ryan Newman fall out of the top 10. You want to see Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Tony Stewart fall out of the top 10, because then you've got an advantage over them. You leapfrog them, essentially, in the wild card race. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting if I'm one of those one-win guys right now, though.
Right.
I think I have got to be fairly conservative now, because although you certainly want to go for the win when you have a chance, the one thing you don't want to do is lose a bunch of points and fall behind those other one-win guys.
But if you're Paul Menard or David Reagan, what you want to do is finish ahead of that other guy, right? Menard is only 7 points ahead of David Reagan right now. He can't afford to finish just a spot or 2 behind David Reagan and still make it in the chase. He has to finish ahead of him each and every race, and Slugger Labby says, look, we're not going to rely on our win. We can't rely on our win. Here's Slugger after the win at Indianapolis.
We still got to be pushing, and you know, we're 14th in points with a win, but that doesn't guarantee you a thing. There's a lot of things that could happen. Ryan Newman's currently in the top 10. He could fall out, take the spot away from us. So we got to keep pushing, be aggressive, and get inside the top 10 and make it that way and not rely on this victory today.
But let's be honest. I mean, that's the attitude he should have. But if Paul Menard is going to make the chase, it's going to be via the wild card, is it not?
Absolutely.
So that and the chances of him winning another race in the next 6, it's hard to see.
Well, especially
it could happen, but it's hard to see right now, given the way the Childress equipment is performing and how this win happened. So I think if you're Paul Menard or you're David Reagan or you're one of those guys, what you don't want to do is lose 20 points in one race because you blew up or because you wrecked or whatever.
Right.
That's what you just cannot afford to have happen.
And with Richmond and New Hampshire and Watkins Glen still ahead.
Well, New Hampshire's in the chase now, so.
Right, New Hampshire's in the chase. But okay, so Watkins Glen and Richmond, easily you could see Paul Menard having lousy afternoon.
Exactly. So you really have to be careful. It's still very much up in the air, the wild card race this season. For Buzz Cutler, I'm Bassmasters.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.